I never imagined that my sister's fifth pregnancy announcement would be the weapon that finally broke my silence. I am Maya, 28 years old, and I spent the last decade raising 4 children who do not belong to me while watching my sister Jessica live like motherhood was optional. I stood at my parents' dinner table on a Thursday evening, watching Jessica rub her belly with that entitled smile she always wore when she knew the family would support whatever she wanted. She announced baby number 5 like it was a miracle, even though she had not held a steady job in over 2 years, and I was the one funding her life. My stomach twisted because I knew exactly what would follow. More guilt, more demands, more of my existence swallowed by her choices. I had just finished a 65-hour work week at the accounting firm and spent my only day off taking her twins to their doctor appointments because she claimed she was too nauseous from morning sickness. My parents beamed at the announcement while my mind calculated the cost. Another year of daycare bills I would cover, another job opportunity I would sacrifice, another chance at my own life that would disappear. I wanted to walk out, but I smiled instead because that was the pattern I had perfected over 10 years. My brain flashed through the evidence. The $17,000 in loans she never repaid, the promotion to senior accountant in Seattle. I turned down 3 years ago because mom insisted the twins needed stability, the boyfriend who walked away 8 months ago after I canceled our weekend trip for the 3rd time because Jessica had an emergency. I felt the crushing weight of family obligations settle on my shoulders, and I opened my mouth to say what I always said, that I would help however she needed. My mother turned to me with expectant eyes, and Jessica reached across the table to squeeze my hand with fake warmth. That second, I almost repeated the script, but exhaustion stopped the words in my throat. I was so tired that even faking enthusiasm felt impossible. I said the first thing that came to mind, I need some time to think about this. The room fell silent. Jessica's confident expression cracked into confusion because I had never hesitated before in 10 years. If you have ever been the family member who sacrifices everything while everyone else takes without thinking, stay with me because what happened over the next 4 days pushed me past every boundary I thought I had. My father broke the silence first. Maya, what does that mean? Your sister needs family now more than ever. Jessica piled on immediately. Yeah, the kids already ask for Aunt Maya every morning. You have always been there for us. My mother nodded and added, We raised you to understand that family supports each other through everything. I gripped my fork until my knuckles went white. This was the trap I had lived in since I was 18. Every crisis, every pregnancy, every moment Jessica decided she could not handle her own life, the family turned to me as the solution. But saying no felt like trying to breathe underwater. I am not saying no. I managed to get out. I just need tonight to process this. They exchanged glances but let it drop. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling into the early hours. Instead of sleeping, I opened my banking app and stared at the number. $3,200 in savings after 10 years of working full-time. That was all I had managed to keep after a decade of funding Jessica's choices. Let me back up so you understand how deep this pattern ran. It started when I was 18 and fresh out of high school. Jessica was 21 and pregnant with her first child after her boyfriend disappeared the second she told him. My parents called me home from my weekend college orientation trip. Your sister needs support right now. Family steps up. I came home, and that summer I did night feedings 3 times a week while taking community college classes. By the end of that year, I was her primary childcare while she worked part-time at a coffee shop and went out with friends on weekends. That set the foundation for everything that followed. I closed the app and rubbed my burning eyes. By the time I turned 22, Jessica had baby number 2. My parents announced that daycare cost $1,200 per month and they could not afford it, so I should watch the baby after my classes since I lived at home anyway. I agreed because saying no felt selfish. That decision cost me my college graduation ceremony. Jessica called that morning claiming the baby had a dangerous fever and she was panicking. I skipped walking across the stage to receive my associate degree and drove to her apartment to find the baby playing happily on the floor with a normal temperature. Jessica was hungover from a party the night before and needed to sleep it off. Nobody noticed I missed my graduation. Nobody asked if I minded. The next morning hit like an avalanche. Jessica knocked on my bedroom door before dawn. Maya, emergency. Mia woke up with a fever of 103 and I cannot miss my shift at work today. My stomach dropped because I had a critical client meeting that morning that could determine my year-end bonus. But I grabbed my clothes and told her I would be right there. I called my boss while getting dressed and explained I had a family emergency. She sighed and said this was the 4th time this month I had called in late or missed important meetings. I promised it would not happen again, even though I knew that was a lie. I arrived at Jessica's room in our parents' house to find Mia playing with toys and showing no signs of illness. I checked her temperature, 99.1 degrees, not even a real fever. Jessica kissed my cheek and said, "You are a lifesaver," before heading out the door to her part-time job that paid $14 per hour for 20 hours per week. I gave Mia breakfast and turned on cartoons while my phone buzzed with messages from work about the client meeting I was missing. By late morning, Mia was running around the house with normal energy. Suspicion crept into my thoughts. I opened Facebook and found a post Jessica had made 30 minutes earlier, a photo of her and her boyfriend at a coffee shop across town with the caption, "Quick breakfast date before my shift, feeling so blessed." My hands started shaking. She had lied directly to my face about Mia being sick so she could go on a date and stick me with childcare. This was not new, but seeing the proof in a public post made rage burn in my chest. I took a screenshot and saved it to my phone. When Jessica returned that afternoon, she acted like nothing had happened. "Thanks so much for covering. How was Mia?" I bit back my anger and said Mia was fine. She smiled and left to pick up her other kids from school. I drove to work and arrived 3 hours late to find my boss waiting at my desk. "Maya, we need to talk about reliability. This pattern is affecting your performance reviews and the team's opinion of your commitment." I apologized and promised to do better, but I could see the disappointment in her expression. That evening, my parents called me into the living room for a family discussion. My mother started, "Jessica told us about Mia being sick today. We are grateful you helped." My father jumped in before I could respond. "We need to discuss the new baby. Jessica will need consistent help with doctor appointments and the kids' schedules. Can you adjust your work hours to be more available?" The assumption that I would rearrange my entire career made my throat tight. I said I would check my schedule. They smiled like the matter was settled. Let me explain another piece of this story because you need to see the full cost. 3 years ago, when I was 25, my boss offered me a major promotion. The position was senior accountant at our Seattle office with a starting salary of $68,000, a huge jump from my current $43,000. I accepted immediately and gave my landlord notice that I would be moving out of my parents' house. I spent a weekend packing boxes and researching neighborhoods in Seattle. My mother found me in my room surrounded by moving boxes and asked what I was doing. I explained about the promotion and the move. Her face fell. "Maya, you cannot leave now. Jessica's twins just turned 3 and she is barely managing. Who will help with drop-offs and pickups? Who will watch them when she has appointments?" The twins were babies 3 and 4, born when Jessica was 28 and still refusing to establish any stable routine. I tried to explain that this was my career, but my mother started crying. "Family does not abandon each other. We need you here." My father added that I was being selfish and Shida. I unpacked the boxes that night and called my boss the next morning to decline the promotion. Someone else took the position, and I stayed at $43,000 per year. That single decision cost me over $200,000 in potential earnings over 3 years, not counting the career advancement I gave up. Back to that evening after discovering Jessica's breakfast date lie, I sat in my room and opened a spreadsheet to document everything because I needed to see the full picture. The numbers made me physically ill. $17,000 in direct loans and payments she never repaid, plus the $200,000 in lost career earnings from turning down Seattle, plus the relationship that ended because my boyfriend finally said he could not compete with 4 kids who were not even mine. I had given up 5 years of vacations because every time I planned a trip, Jessica manufactured a crisis that required my immediate presence. Later that evening, Jessica knocked on my door. "Can you take all 4 kids tomorrow? I have an important doctor appointment for the pregnancy." All 4 children for an entire day meant I would have to use another vacation day from work. I had 2 days left for the rest of the year. Every instinct screamed at me to say yes, because that was what I had been trained to do for a decade. But I looked at her and said, "I have to work tomorrow. Sorry." Her face went red. "What?" "Maya, you never say no. I need you. Mom and Dad both have plans. I closed my door without answering. The following morning, I woke to pounding on my bedroom door. I opened it to find Jessica standing in the hallway with all 4 kids and their overnight bags. "I told you I have a doctor appointment. The kids are staying here today." She pushed past me into my room and dropped the bags on my floor. The kids, ages 10, 8, 6, and 4, ran past her toward the kitchen. I grabbed her arm. "I said I have to work. Take them with you, or find other childcare." She pulled away and laughed like I was joking. "Right, Maya. I will just cancel my appointment with the high-risk pregnancy specialist. That is totally safe." She headed for the door, and I followed her down the stairs. "Jessica, I am serious. I cannot watch them today." She spun around at the front door. "You are seriously going to abandon your family right now? Mom and Dad are going to hear about this." She walked out and drove away before I could stop her. I stood in the entryway with 4 kids staring at me and asking for breakfast. My work meeting started soon. I called my boss again and said I had an emergency and could not come in. I could hear the frustration in her voice when she said we would discuss this later. I spent the day taking care of Jessica's children while my career credibility dissolved. The kids were not the problem. I loved them, and they deserved better than this situation. But I was drowning, and nobody seemed to care. That afternoon, while the kids watched a movie, I sat at the kitchen table and searched for apartments online. I found a small 1-bedroom unit near my office that would eat most of my paycheck, but I needed space that was mine. I submitted an application with my pay stubs and credit report. The landlord called me back and said I was approved. Move-in date was available within days. My finger hovered over the confirmation button. This felt like jumping off a cliff. I clicked confirm and paid the deposit. There was no going back. When Jessica picked up the kids that evening, she acted like everything was normal. "Thanks for watching them. You are the best sister ever." I did not respond. After she left, I found my parents in the living room and said I needed to talk. They looked up from the television and I said clearly, "I am moving out this weekend. I found an apartment and signed a lease today. I will not be available for childcare anymore." The silence lasted 5 seconds before my mother gasped. "Maya, what are you saying? You cannot just abandon Jessica when she is pregnant with her 5th child." My father added, "This is incredibly selfish timing. Family means sacrifice." I had heard these words in different variations for 10 years. "I have sacrificed," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I gave up Seattle. I gave up my graduation. I gave up vacations and relationships and $17,000 in money Jessica never repaid. I am done sacrificing." Jessica walked in from the kitchen where she had apparently been listening. "You are seriously doing this right now? When I need you most? What kind of sister are you?" Her voice cracked with tears, but I saw the anger underneath. I picked up my keys and walked out without answering. The next few days were chaos. I called in sick to work and spent every spare moment packing my belongings into boxes and bags. My parents barely spoke to me. Jessica came to my door repeatedly with guilt trips and outright threats. The kids are crying, asking where Aunt Maya went. "Mom and Dad are so disappointed in you. You are going to regret this when you end up alone with no family." My mother tried a different approach, knocking on my door with tears in her eyes, asking me to reconsider and think about the children. I told her the children deserved a mother who actually raised them, not an aunt who was forced into the role. She left without another word. Moving day came that weekend. I rented a truck and loaded everything I owned with help from my coworker, Sarah, who had offered when I mentioned I was moving. We finished loading by midday, and I drove to my new apartment with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I unloaded boxes into the evening and collapsed on my mattress on the floor. For the first time in 10 years, I slept through the entire night without being woken up by a child or a crisis call from Jessica. I woke the next morning to complete silence. No kids yelling, no sister demanding my attention, no parents guilting me about family obligation. I sat on my mattress and cried from relief. The first days in my apartment felt like learning to breathe again. I went to work on time every single day. I stayed late to finish projects without worrying about picking up kids from school. My boss noticed the change immediately and praised my renewed focus. I went to the gym regularly, something I had not done in over a year. I cooked dinner for myself and ate it slowly while reading a book. These tiny freedoms felt revolutionary. My parents called me every evening asking me to reconsider and come back. I repeated the same response. I am not coming back. Jessica needs to figure out her own childcare. Eventually, they stopped calling. The family brought escalation. Jessica found ways around my blocked number by messaging me from her friends' phones. Maya, please. The kids miss you so much. I cannot handle all of this alone. Just come for dinner so we can talk. I deleted every message without responding. My mother sent me a long email detailing how much stress Jessica was under and how I was making her pregnancy dangerous with my selfishness. I archived the email unread. One evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered and heard Jessica's voice. Maya, thank God. Lily fell at school and broke her arm. I am at the hospital, but they need insurance information and I cannot find the card. Can you come help? My stomach dropped. A broken arm was serious. I asked which hospital and she said, Mercy General in the emergency room. I hung up and called the hospital directly to ask about a patient named Lily under Jessica's last name. The receptionist checked and said there was no patient by that name in their system. I called Jessica back and said, You lied. There is no broken arm. She stammered for a second and then hung up. I blocked that number too. Days later, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Jessica standing on my doorstep with all 4 kids in their backpacks. I did not open the door. She rang the bell again and knocked hard. Maya, open up. I know you are home. I stayed silent. She yelled through the door. I have a job interview and I need you to watch the kids. This is important. I texted her from inside. Take them to Mom and Dad's house. She texted back. They are not home. Please, Maya. I responded. Find other childcare. I am not available. She pounded on the door hard enough to shake the frame. You cannot do this. These are your nieces and nephews. I watched through the peephole as she finally gave up and herded the kids back to her car. That evening, my father called. Maya, you need to grow up and stop this tantrum. Jessica is doing her best as a single mother, and you are making everything harder. I asked him why Jessica could not hire a babysitter like every other parent who needed childcare. He said babysitters cost money she did not have. I reminded him that I had given Jessica $17,000 over the years that she never repaid and suggested she use that money. He called me cruel and hung up. I sat on my couch and felt something shift inside me. For the first time, I felt angry instead of guilty. They had spent 10 years conditioning me to believe that caring for myself was cruel, and abandoning my sister was the worst possible sin. But I was not abandoning anyone. I was stopping them from abandoning Jessica's responsibilities onto me. Then came the breaking point. I was in the middle of a client presentation at work when our receptionist knocked on the conference room door. Maya, there are police officers here asking for you. My heart stopped. I excused myself and walked to the lobby where 2 uniformed officers stood waiting. Are you Maya Thompson? I nodded. You are under arrest for kidnapping and theft. Please turn around. My brain could not process what was happening. They put handcuffs on my wrists while my coworkers stared from their cubicles. My boss stood frozen in her office doorway. The officers walked me through the lobby and into their squad car while I tried to understand what was happening. They explained that Jessica had filed a report claiming I had taken her 4 children from school 2 days ago and refused to return them, and that I had stolen belongings from her home, including clothing and toys. None of that was true, but I was too shocked to speak. At the police station, they put me in an interrogation room before a detective came in. He introduced himself as Detective Martinez and asked me to explain my relationship with Jessica. I told him the entire story. 10 years of raising her children, the money she owed me, my recent move to my own apartment, her attempts to force me back into childcare. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked if I had any proof of my version of events. I pulled out my phone and showed him the spreadsheet documenting every loan and payment. I showed him the text messages from Jessica asking me to watch the kids dozens of times. I showed him my lease agreement proving I moved out recently. I showed him screenshots of Jessica's Facebook posts on days she claimed to have emergencies. Detective Martinez took notes and made copies of everything. Then he called Jessica and put her on speaker. Ms. Thompson, I am here with your sister Maya. Can you confirm that she took your children from school 2 days ago? Jessica's voice came through the speaker, angry and defensive. Yes, she has been taking them without asking for weeks and refusing to bring them back. The detective said calmly, According to school records, your children have not been absent any days this month. Can you explain that? Jessica stammered and changed her story. Well, she threatened to take them, and she has their belongings from when they stayed at her house. The detective asked what belongings. Jessica listed some toys and clothes. He looked at me, and I explained that those items had been left at my parents' house where I used to live, and Jessica was free to pick them up any time. The detective thanked Jessica and hung up. He looked at me and said, "Your sister filed a false police report, which is a misdemeanor. You are free to go. I recommend you document everything and consider getting a restraining order." They released me with no charges. I returned to my office to pick up my car. When I arrived at work the next morning, I found an email from HR asking me to come to a meeting immediately. I walked to the HR office expecting to be fired. My boss, Karen, was there along with the HR director. I started to apologize, but Karen held up her hand. "Maya, I need to tell you something. Years ago, my younger sister did almost the exact same thing to me. She had 3 kids and expected me to raise them while she lived her life. I finally cut her off and she called the police and made false accusations just like your sister did. It destroyed my reputation at my old job, and I had to start over somewhere new." She paused and looked at me directly. "You are not getting fired. You are getting a promotion. You have been one of our most talented accountants for years, but the family situation was affecting your performance. Now that you have set boundaries, I am promoting you to senior accountant with a significant raise. But I am also giving you the business card for the lawyer who helped me. Call her today." I called the lawyer that afternoon from my car. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she agreed to meet with me the next day. I brought copies of everything: bank statements showing the $17,000 in loans and payments, text messages, screenshots of Jessica's lies, the police report from my arrest, and documentation of the job promotion I had turned down for Seattle. Patricia reviewed everything and then looked up at me. "You have an extremely strong case for harassment and defamation. The false police report alone is a crime. The public Facebook post asking for donations because you allegedly abandoned the kids is defamation. We can file a civil suit for emotional distress and financial damages." She paused and added, "But I recommend we start with a demand letter. We will lay out everything you have documented, inform your sister that filing false police reports is a crime, and offer to drop all legal action if she agrees to specific terms. Most people cave when they realize they could face criminal charges." I asked what terms she would recommend. Patricia wrote them down. Jessica must send a written apology to the police department admitting the report was false. She must repay the $17,000 in loans and bills over a payment plan. She must have 0 contact with me for a minimum of 6 months. The entire family must stop contacting me to pressure me about childcare. If Jessica violates any of these terms, the civil suit and criminal complaint go forward immediately. Patricia said we should also demand a family meeting where Jessica admits to the lies in front of my parents, while Patricia is present as a witness. I agreed to everything. Patricia sent the demand letter to Jessica via certified mail and copied my parents. Days later, my mother called me for the first time in weeks. Her voice was shaking. "Maya, we need to talk as a family. This lawyer letter is very serious." I said I would only meet if Patricia was present and if everyone agreed to listen without interrupting me. My mother agreed. We scheduled the meeting for that weekend at my parents' house. I walked into my parents' living room that weekend with Patricia next to me, carrying a briefcase full of documents. My mother and father sat on the couch. Jessica sat in the armchair looking pale and angry. Patricia started by explaining that she was there as my legal counsel, and this meeting was being recorded with everyone's knowledge. She laid out the evidence on the coffee table: bank statements, text messages, the police report, and the screenshots of Jessica's lies. She explained that filing a false police report is a crime punishable by jail time and substantial fines. She noted that Jessica's Facebook post asking for donations based on lies about me abandoning the kids was textbook defamation. Then Patricia looked at my parents and said, "Your daughter Maya has documentation proving she gave Jessica $17,000 that was never repaid. She turned down a job in Seattle that would have paid $68,000 because you asked her to stay for the twins. She gave up years of vacation days and ended a serious relationship because Jessica created emergencies requiring Maya's immediate help." My mother started crying. "We did not know it was that much." I spoke for the first time. "You knew enough. Every time I tried to set a boundary, you told me I was being selfish. Every time Jessica lied to me, you told me to cut her slack because she was stressed. You trained me to believe that my life did not matter as much as hers. My father tried to defend their position. We were just trying to keep the family together. I looked at him and said, "You kept the family together by sacrificing one daughter to enable the other. That is not family. That is exploitation." Jessica finally spoke. "I did not realize you felt this way. I thought you liked helping with the kids." Patricia pulled out her phone and read aloud from some of the text messages. Jessica to Maya, "You are the only one I can count on. I do not know what I would do without you. The kids need you more than I do." These messages show deliberate manipulation, not miscommunication. Jessica's face reddened. I was desperate. Single mother with 4 kids and another on the way. I leaned forward. "You made choices that created those situations. You kept having children you could not afford to raise. You quit jobs because you did not feel like working. You spent money on vacations and designer purses while I paid your electricity bills. And when I finally said no, you tried to have me arrested with a completely fabricated story." Patricia placed the settlement agreement on the table. "Here are the terms. Jessica admits to the police in writing that her report was false. She repays the $17,000 through monthly payments. She and the entire family have 0 contact with Maya for 6 months minimum. After 6 months, any contact must be initiated by Maya, and she can refuse at any time. Jessica never asks Maya for childcare or money again under any circumstances. If any of these terms are violated, we file criminal charges for the false police report and a civil suit." Patricia looked at Jessica. "You have days to accept these terms, or we proceed with legal action." Jessica looked at our parents with tears running down her face. My father said quietly, "You need to sign this. You could go to jail if you do not." Jessica grabbed the pen and signed the agreement. Patricia made copies for everyone and explained that the document was legally binding. She told Jessica that she needed to call the police department soon to submit the written apology and correction. We stood up to leave, and my mother reached for my hand. "Maya, please. Can we fix this?" I pulled my hand back. "You can start by respecting the 6-month no-contact period. After that, we will see." Months later, I sat in my apartment one evening reading a book with a cup of tea. Jessica had called the police after our meeting and submitted a written statement admitting her report was false and apologizing for wasting police resources. She had been making her payments on time through direct deposit to my bank account. My parents had sent one email saying they were sorry for not protecting me better and they hoped we could rebuild our relationship eventually. I had not replied yet. My promotion at work had led to even more opportunities, and I was now being considered for a position managing a team. I had been dating someone I met through a friend, and we were taking things slowly without any family drama interfering. My savings account had grown steadily. Most importantly, I had learned what boundaries felt like, and I was never going back to living without them. I thought love meant endless sacrifice and putting everyone else first, no matter the cost. Now I know that love without mutual respect is just another word for being used. I do not regret the years I spent helping raise my nieces and nephews because they deserved love and care. But I will always regret not walking away sooner. If you are reading this and you recognize yourself as the person who gives everything while everyone else takes, please understand that setting boundaries is not selfish. Protecting your own life is not cruel, and you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Your life matters just as much as theirs, and you deserve to live it.